For today's piece, I got a very interesting topic I want to talk about. Usually, when we discuss elements of presentation or how well a game looks, we refer to the aesthetics, the art, the sound, UI, things like that. But for today, I want to talk about this idea of presenting gameplay. And how do you motivate somebody to keep playing through a gameplay loop and not just get bored or turned off by the mechanics in question? The quality of games that have been released over the past decade has been one of the more shining aspects of the game industry, especially from the independent space. And we can really kind of chart how much the bar has been risen from 2010 to where we're at in 2020. And a part of that has been trying to make games more, and again, for lack of a better term, I'm going to be using presentable when it comes to their designs. As I said in the opening clip there, when we talk about presentation, in a lot of cases, we're referring to mainly the aesthetic element of it. How do the graphics look? Are the animations of high quality? Do we have a game that looks like Grease or Ori and the Blind Forest? Or do we have something that looks like Rocky and Bullwinkle on the NES? Or any very low quality, very hard to look at title? But one of the big aspects I tend to find with the games that tend to stick out, and most importantly are the ones that are the most well received and kind of highly rated of their respective years, is this kind of approach to how the gameplay itself is presented. And this is a very tough concept to talk about because I don't think it's something that a lot of people would really think about. And much like UI design, you know when it's good and you won't say anything, and you will most likely complain or not play the game when it's bad. And it's hard to know where that line falls. So, for this kind of topic, when we talk about kind of presenting the gameplay or presenting the gameplay loop of a title, it ultimately all stems from one inherent goal. You are trying to make the game appear greater than the sum of its parts. And this is something that, again, any great video game has certainly succeeded on. When you play Game of the Year winners, 9 or 10 out of 10s from various sites and such, you can almost feel almost like the clockwork-like consistency in every aspect of that game. The gameplay works, it looks amazing, and it's just a title that it feels, again, like the developer just got a completely lucky, 100% RNG, and the game just worked without any problems. Now, obviously, developing it to that point probably had a lot more issues than that. But when we're talking about this idea of presenting gameplay, this is something that I feel is a really big bar for a lot of first-time and younger developers. As we have played many games, especially doing a lot of indie spotlights here on the channel, we've gotten to see that very wide range of titles coming from either first-time developers or even those who are established or working on their first very big idea. And one of the things that I think separates, or one like the telltale signs of a new developer, is that there is very little in terms of the presentation side of the gameplay, and arguably leaving the presentation side of the graphics as well. For those of you who are indie devs or tend to play a lot of games that are on the independent space or first-timers, tell me, have you played games that you start the game, there's no opening splash, no intro, it's just title screen right here. You press a button, you are immediately playing the game. When it's over, you hit exit, the game immediately goes back to the opening screen. There is nothing else there. There's no connective tissue. There's no greater semblance of a story. It's essentially just like one and done kind of game. And what I just described could be a lot of first-time games, and even some by studios working on a major title for 2 to 5 years or more. And to me, I find this to be a major turnoff. And the problem with this is that when it comes to presenting gameplay, you really need to give this sense of, and again, it's very hard to talk about as well, creating new words or terminology, but about almost preserving each play of the game. Almost like, again, acknowledging that somebody has played this game before. And I know that's not really an easy definition or an easy way to describe it. With a lot of the games that I've played, and especially again from first time and rookie developers, the second that game is over, everything is white. And this is a major part about old school and arcade games. That the second you hit game over or the game ends, that entire run just vanishes from existence. The game has no recollection or any way of storing that data, maybe outside of just, top high score or top 3 players. One of the aspects that we've seen from developers over the past decade is this greater idea of preserving or remembering that the player has played this game before. One of the easiest ways of doing this, of course, is having persistent elements, whether it's as something as simple as achievements to something as grand as unlocking new content, new levels, bosses, you name it, that will then appear in subsequent runs. We can even drill this down a little bit further and talk about the connection of story to the game. And I have another topic that's going to be equating mechanics to the story, so I won't get too far into it here. But another aspect where developers tend to slip up on is having some kind of connection from the story you've introduced to what is going on in the game. How many games have we played where your story is just 5 paragraphs of text that you can skip every time you start a new game, and then it's never referenced ever again? And while we've seen developers go a little bit further with that, it still doesn't come off as being strong enough. I've seen some developers have crazy amounts of lore and backstory to their game that may show up before a level, and then it has absolutely no reason or purpose or any impact on playing the game itself. This is an example that I brought up in an article that should be going up around the same time as this video, but one of the things that I love that kind of gave me a bit of a laugh was last year there was a Kaizo hack release called Grand Poo World 2, named after the Mario Maker and speedrunner, or Mario Maker and a Kaizo player, the same name. And one of the things that the developer, another Kaizo creator and player named Barb, did was he created a connection between the world map and each level. So when you leave a level, let's say the background where the Mario flagpole or the victory tape was has images of mountains in it. Well, when you go to the next level, guess what? You're going to be in a mountainous area. And he even had elements or on the map part of the first game that you could kind of scroll down and look at. And a lot of the people who play the game remarked just how much of a novel and interesting idea it was. And like I said, that's not that complicated. If we're going to a fire world next, maybe have some fireballs on the final screen of a previous stage. But it's little stuff like this that begins to give your game a greater sense of a connection. Again, making it greater than the sum of its parts. Now, you've probably been noticing up there in the corner that we've been running AI Wars 2. And there's a reason why I put this as the footage for the game, or for the footage for this first part. When I look at Arkin and Chris Park and all his designs he released this past decade, they've all been mechanically deep titles, I think with exception to Daedalus, or I may be butchering that name there. But I think they've always been lacking in terms of presenting their gameplay. With AI Wars, and again, this is something that a lot of indie developers have done. You start the game, you just get a bunch of options on a menu. There's no sense of a story or where to begin. This is something that even grand strategy games have suffered with. Player hits start, they have to go through a bunch of settings, they're in the game, and then when it's over, it's all been white. And it's very hard, I feel, and this I think is one of the reasons why a lot of grand strategy, 4X, and kind of system-heavy titles have a very hard time in bringing in new players. Now, somebody who is a fan of strategy games, especially of Arkin, they know exactly where to start. They already had that idea of what to expect. If you're a new player, whether it's to the genre or to the game in general, you're going to be kind of at a loss as to what am I looking at? What am I supposed to go to? This is one of the reasons why, again, AAA games have done a really good job of being approachable and have high playability for new players. They know that they're going to get people who've never played this game before. And it's not just a case of frozen still image, start, game immediately begins. You know, we get a story, we get an intro, we get something that guides the player into that experience. One of the more simplest and yet very big examples of this came from God of War 2018. You load up the game for the first time, you have this image of Kratos standing there, you know, looking all angry and ready to kick some butt. You choose, you know, new game, you choose a difficulty level, and then instead of just throwing Kratos into a battle with a boss, we're watching a cutscene of him, you know, chopping a tree down and talking to his son. And things do get crazy, but it leads the player in. There's this sense of a progression to the gameplay and the story. And these are all elements, whether they are very small or very overt and take a lot of time. But in the end, again, it makes your game feel like a completed project. Instead of just 5 to 10 different systems that all exist independently of each other. Okay, I go over here, this is going to be base building. Then, you know, forget all about that, now let's go into a dungeon. Now we're going to go over here and we have visual novel elements or anything like that. And speaking about base building or dungeon crawling, Darkest Dungeon would be another really good example of how all the aspects of that game tie together to create a very appealing, or I guess brutally appealing presentation to the title. And again, let's not forget about Wayne June providing narration there. And the point about this is that for a lot of people watching this right now, especially if you are newer on the development side, you're probably sitting there thinking, why does this all matter? If I have great mechanics, you know, everyone likes playing my game, what does presentation have to do with all that? And to answer that question, go a little bit more detailed, we're going to switch to our game or our next example next. But first, a quick shout out to our current Game Wisdom supporters and sponsors. And now for a quick shout out to our current Game Wisdom supporters and sponsors. Going forward, all Patreon supporters will get early access to our videos. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, linked down below. If you're looking for more wisdom about game design, be sure to check out my latest offering of books, 20 Essential Games to Study, aimed for first-time developers and students looking for some inspiration for their upcoming games, and Game Design Deep Dive Platformers if you're interested in anything regarding 2D and 3D platforming design. They're both available in print, digital, and wherever books are being sold. A recent example of a game that's done a really good job of presenting not only the story and the gameplay, but just the overall various aspects and systems of it would be Hades by Supergiant. Now, the game at the moment is still in early access, but I think it's nearing the end of it. So it's been in development for quite a bit, and we've kind of been able to watch it grow over the scenes. With kind of the overall presentation from the gameplay point of view, we have the game kind of committing to this idea of making the roguelike aspects feel like a part of the story. The world resets constantly because you're in the underworld. You can live, die, and repeat because you're a demigod. And you can see little flourishes of how the various systems are put together. Instead of just having a generic stats screen where you apply experience points, we have this lovely little mirror here with a quote that goes with it that allows us to upgrade our stats. Instead of just having, again, very static images or no real sense of consistency or, again, connective tissue between elements, everything fits together here. We don't need to have a separate screen. We have a display case of all of our various keepsakes. All the weapons that we can use are on display up there. And it's, again, a way of tying everything together. As a counterpoint to this, there was the game we played, I think it was called City of Brass, which was kind of like an Arabian Nights roguelike. And in that game, instead of having like elements that kind of tie from one aspect to the next, they use a lot of still images. Instead of having like weapons fully detailed, you have just a page with like a little icon and a blurb about it. Instead of persistent elements, again, it was just very stacked screens. Now, in the worst examples of games that don't do a lot in terms of presenting their gameplay, they may use, I always forget the term off the top of my head, placeholder art, there we go, when it comes to various aspects. And even if they try and update it, it may not look like it fully connects within the world or the game space itself. And when you don't think about presenting your gameplay, it makes it look very bare bones, and in kind of a way, it makes it look more unprofessional than it may have been otherwise. We play games where instead of having characters animate to attack, the character model will just literally glide from one end of the screen, not even do an attack animation, just go over, tap the enemy model, and then go back to the other side. And so many of these aspects, again, are those little touches that can add to the experience of playing a game. We could even, again, if we wanted to, stretch this into talking more about UI and quality of life aspects, but that is definitely its own topic. Now, as you can see with the footage of Hades that's going on, you can't hear the sound effects, unfortunately, over my booming voice. And the game does a really good job of having, again, that connection. Zag here, I can't pronounce his first name all the way, comments constantly on the weapons and items he picks up, who he's fighting, and again, it's a way of making it feel like there is a connection to everything that's happening on screen. And for those of you watching this right now, I know you're probably thinking that this sounds like it's a lot of work. And guess what? It is. Like I said at the start, the bar of quality for how you present a video game to people has been raised thanks to so many amazing titles being released. One example of games that I think still have trouble with presentation is the puzzle genre. I have played so many puzzle and puzzle-like games from indie developers that is nothing more than just a stacked screen of choose 100 different puzzles and then you move on to the next one and the next one. And again, there's no connection. Even the background art or any art in the game is irrelevant to the actual gameplay. And it makes the game just feel like just kind of like busy work before I go into something else. And you can contrast this with something like Manifold Garden or the Talos Principle, and even to the evolution of Zachtronics' titles. That when we first looked at some of his early games, they were very static and very bare bones in terms of their connection. Each puzzle was met with like maybe a short blurb or a short bit of story, and then that was it. But he's been moving on to having more elaborate stories and more sense of, again, of this growing persistence within the world of each title. But there have been other puzzle games that just fail to do that. In Manifold Garden's case, what William did was you have the various puzzle rooms, and then you have the sense of the overall connection of the hub. And the idea of a hub for your game or your game space, that could probably be its own design topic at this point. But just to make sure everyone's on the same page, the hub is essentially the transition from one puzzle or one area of your game to the next. And with Manifold Garden, you have complete freedom to explore the hub before and after each stage. And again, the hub itself, in most cases, does not add to the gameplay of a title. It's just simply, again, some way of providing a connection between your various levels. Another simple example, again, is the world map that was seen in many 2D platformers. And when you add all this stuff together, again, it makes your game greater than the sum of its parts. And like I said, when it works, while players may not be able to comprehend why they think it, they will come away with your game with, I think, a greater appreciation or a greater motivation to keep playing it or to return to it in the future. With all that said, here is my question for those of you watching this. Besides the examples I've mentioned, can you think of games that have a really great job in terms of presenting the gameplay and the game systems within them? And can you think of titles that did not do that? Games that, regardless of having amazing gameplay or something that you really enjoy playing, you kind of just lost interest in playing the game, no matter how much enjoyment you had when you first started playing it. Let me know in the comments below, but thank you for watching this video. Come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. And be sure to check out our Discord and all that linked down below. But that is going to do it for this piece. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all next time. Take care. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoy things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel linked down below, where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.